welcome back to yet another episode of Dan and Frankie Go to Hollywood. My name's Dan.
And I'm Frankie.
Is that right? Well, I guess your driver's license wasn't lying. So, how have you been? How you doing, old friend?
Pretty good apart from the heat. How are you?
Yes, I am sufficiently dying lately, especially at nighttime where it's like 30-something degrees, and only when I say my downstairs is air-conditioned, I do mean my apartment where I live. I don't mean my, that is definitely not air-conditioned, but that's beside the point. I've been doing good. I have been wrestling a little bit lately with, as you know, with the start of this podcast and everything, I have forsaken video games as much as possible to get back into movie watching, because the last couple of years I haven't watched anywhere near enough movies as I would like to because of things like Prominence Poker and GTA and Power Wash Simulator, which have taken over my life. But as you know, this year, I've been trying to keep away from video games, but oh boy, I'm a little bit hooked on Shadow of the Tomb Raider right now, which is sort of movie-ish, you know. I mean, it's a very cinematic game and stuff, but it was one that I hadn't played yet, and so I've just gotten stuck into that. So I'm doing my best at the moment to juggle movies and video games, but yeah.
Well, I've noticed how much your movie watching has increased in recent times.
Oh my God, has it ever? I mean, this month alone I've exceeded 30 movies already, you know, which is phenomenal for me. But yeah, I know that you wanted to inspire the masses of people to watch movies, but you've also inspired me. So,
Yay!
Best podcast ever, if you ask me. But, look, on the subject of movies that we've been watching, there's been quite a mixed bag over the last couple of weeks. How about you?
Yeah, I've watched a lot. I just had to look when you said about watching lots of movies. I haven't logged the 2 I watched yesterday, so I'm on 42 all up for this year so far.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm on that many. I think the last I checked was, maybe 36, 37 or something. But
although with this stupid heat wave, I think on Friday, the public holiday, I watched 4 movies, and then on Saturday I watched 4 movies.
Yeah, right.
Yesterday I dropped down to 2.
Oh my God, no, somebody call the paramedics. So I mean, look, what are some of the highlights of your viewing experience of recent?
Well, should we start with one that we both watched?
I think might be
two that we both watched.
Yes, let's get stuck into those.
This was a great surprise. I had heard about a movie called Horror in the High Desert as being a found footage film that was really good. Mm-hmm. I'm not into found footage, but I thought I'd give it a go since people said good things about it. People being perhaps just one person on Letterboxd that watched it. But anyway, good enough, got me intrigued. Mm-hmm. And then I found out it's actually not really a found footage film, but a mockumentary that has found footage elements in, which actually worked really well for me because it's basically like watching a true crime documentary with some spooky stuff. So it's basically about a film crew following up on a guy who went missing in the wilderness a while back. And so they're talking to friends and family and all of that. And standout movie because I don't get scared in movies. You know this.
I do know that, yeah.
Don't know what it is about me. Maybe because real life is so scary that fictional worlds can't do anything, but a movie always stands out when it actually makes me feel really uneasy and tense because it's so rare. And this film did that. It's kind of just sort of more at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It brings it in at the end, but you know, it was good enough along the way, but it was the end that really made it. Although it kind of builds up to something, and the payoff doesn't really deliver after the excellent build-up. But it's still a really enjoyable film.
Yeah,
And then I know I told you to watch it afterwards.
you did, and especially based on your reaction, I was like, oh my god, I need to see this film. And so I, on the other hand, am a huge fan of found footage films, but as long as they're done right, as long as I've said before, there's got to be a reason for the camera to be there. That's actually the main thing for me, really, because when you're watching a found footage film and you're sitting there going, well, why would anyone be filming that? Why would there be a camera there? It just sort of takes you out of the realism, and that's what these films are designed to do, is be realistic. And yeah, this film, because of the mockumentary thing and combined with found footage, I also thought it was fantastic. Mostly I did kind of feel the ending, it did build a lot of suspense, and there were a lot of moments that creeped me out for sure. Particularly, and I know I didn't mention this to you, the bit where when the guy, towards the end is filming the stuff at night, and that weird person, the antagonist, if you will, does that sort of sideways trot towards the camera. Like, that was just so unnatural and bizarre, and out of everything in the film, that has stuck in my mind the most, because it was just so shocking to see someone moving like that. But yeah, look, overall, I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was as good as the second one, Horror in the High Desert 2 Minerva. And yeah, that had a lot of moments that have stuck in my head, and I know you and I have talked about them.
They changed it up in this one, and they didn't just wait till the end to put all the creepy stuff. It was more like throughout. Same sort of setup of like documentary makers going to follow stories of two women in the same area as the guy from the first film. And yeah, this had lots of creepy stuff too, especially at the end as well.
Yeah, but there was so many moments that
weird stuff.
Yeah, that felt kind of like being in a nightmare, because, sometimes when your brain is going into those places at night when you're asleep, and you sort of wake up thinking, well, why the hell did that happen in my dream or whatever? And there were so many moments in that I just thought, wow, what does this all mean? Okay, fair enough. But I thought those films did a good job of, there's that whole thing. I think it was Alfred Hitchcock who maintained the rule that in order to make something truly suspenseful, you've got to keep that suspense lingering, because so many movies, especially Hollywood horror films, and I'm looking at you, Blumhouse, will do a thing where, like, there's a bit of suspense, but then, boom, you get a jump scare, and it's like, you get the release. But I thought those films did a pretty good job of keeping that suspense held and not giving you that payoff, so you kind of still on edge, even after the movie's finished, you've still got that kind of feeling. So yeah, they were a big surprise. And if anyone is interested in watching them, they're on Tubi at the moment, which you can watch for free. Just with a couple of ads here and there, but who cares?
And apparently there's a third one coming, so looking forward to that whenever that's going to come out. I haven't looked if there's a release date. There's nothing, no year listed on Letterboxd, so I don't know how far away it is, but I will definitely be watching it. Yeah,
absolutely. And there was another movie that we watched as well, which you were rather a big fan of.
Hellbender.
Oh, wait a minute, wrong Addams Family.
I've heard about the Addams Family a lot. I listen to horror podcasts, and so they've been mentioned, and I just, for some reason, never got around to watching their films, and I don't know what put it in my head, probably another mention on a podcast, but Hellbender is streaming on... Was that Tubi as well? Was that Amazon?
Got a feeling it was. No, I can't remember now.
I will look it up. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I just kind of went into it without even really looking up what it was about, and it was so good. It was just my kind of movie of a lot of it about visuals and music, and they're living, it's like a mother and daughter living out in the woods, and the mother says to the daughter, you can't be around people, it's too dangerous, you're sick, and you kind of get the feeling straight away that she's not actually sick, so what's going on? Why can't she see people? And it's just really interesting. Actually, this is on Amazon through AMC, so maybe it's on Shudder.
That's right. Yeah. That's where it was. Yeah, look, you gave it really high praise, and so I was thinking to myself, oh, okay. So I had an interesting experience with it, actually. I sat down to watch it, and for the first two acts, I was liking it. I wasn't loving it, and I thought, okay, this is maybe one that you and I might not agree on completely, but by the third act, it really elevated my experience in a huge way. And yeah, I came out of that giving it 4 stars out of 5. Because that third act just, and it made me want to go back and revisit the film again at some point, because I think I'll like it more knowing that the end pays off so well. But the fact that it was made by a family that when they're not performing in the film, they're doing the cinematography and camera work or, whatever else. And they made the music and they did everything. I thought that was fascinating. I've never really seen anything like that before. So, that was very impressive. I quite enjoyed that film. Yeah, so thank you.
I also checked out The Deeper You Dig, which was the film they made before Hellbender. That one is streaming on Prime and Plex. And I didn't like it as much, but it was still really interesting. It's another mother and daughter living in the woods. And then there's like a guy working on an abandoned farmhouse that's kind of a neighbor to them, and then they kind of get caught up in stuff, which I won't say anymore because you don't want to know.
No.
But yeah, it's similar. It's a bit more straight, like a bit more of a narrative story, whereas Hellbender was very much visuals and mood and everything, and this is a bit more of a straightforward, which is why I thought you might not like Hellbender as much as me, because I know you're more story.
I am.
I'm more like visuals and atmosphere and feelings and stuff. So but yeah, so I would recommend still that you check out The Deeper You Dig.
All right. Well, I've actually been doing a lot of watching lately of films that I have been wanting to see but never got around to. Which again, thanks to this podcast, I am now a movie person. So, but look, one of the films that I watch, which is something that has been on my radar for so long now, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to get around to watching it. A movie from 1987 called Miami Connection. Have you seen that one or heard of that one?
I have not seen it. I have heard of it.
Okay, let me read the synopsis from Letterboxd. In a world where ninjas dream of being rock stars and rock stars dream of being ninjas, a martial arts rock band goes up against a band of motorcycle ninjas who have tightened their grip on Florida's narcotics trade. This movie delivered everything that I had heard about it. You've got this band of orphaned dudes who are Taekwondo experts in a band called Dragon Sound, which is just this cheesy 80s synth rock band, and yeah, oh my god, you've got all this soap operatic stuff. One of the guys is just determined to one day find his dad, and then look, I'm gonna spoil this thing. I don't care. If you haven't seen it by now, then you should have. So, towards the end, like, he gets this letter in the mail about how his dad has, tracked him down or whatever, and all of these other dudes come out to the driveway and they're all overacting like hell. They're like, oh my God, man, oh my God, this is so awesome. And then they actually pick the guy up onto their shoulders and, bounce him around like a sports game sort of thing. And then, oh man, it was so much fun. It was just everything you want from a movie with that description. So, that was one of the movies that I can proudly tick off my list of films that I've been dying to see but never got around to.
Well, speaking of films that I never got around to, I last year decided I wanted to watch all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films because I'd only seen the first one, or possibly one in the 90s. But I watched that recently, and I feel like perhaps I haven't seen it and I was confusing it with a different movie. But I watched the Next Generation one, which is also called, I think, The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in some places. It's the one that's famous for having Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger before they got famous. And it's not good.
Wow, really? What a surprise.
It's interesting to see Matthew McConaughey because he's completely insane in it. So it's really fun. And I'm pretty sure he walked into a dinner scene and he walked into the room and went, all right, all right, all right. I'm pretty sure he said it 3 times. So I was just like, that's interesting. But then following that, because I was following the timeline continuity, the next one was the recent one that came out in 2022, I think, on Netflix. Also, did not really like it. It started off okay and just kind of went downhill. Just had people died that I didn't want to die, and it was just a bit silly. And then there was a really annoying girl in it. And it just... Yeah, I don't know. I just got a bit annoyed as it went on. Yeah. But there was some interesting kills and things in it. So, it wasn't all bad, but I probably won't revisit that. And now I'm just wondering if the first movie is going to be the only one that I like because...
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I didn't really like the second one. The third... The one with Viggo Mortensen was okay because he was in it. But... yeah, I haven't really liked any of them much so far, considering what a masterpiece the first one is.
I completely agree. The first one is just a film that should never have been turned into a franchise. And I know I say that about a lot of films that became franchises, but especially that one. It was lightning in a bottle, and I vaguely remember The Next Generation. I think I had it on VHS back in the day. That being said, I only vaguely remember the recent Netflix one as well. All I remember is the bus scene, and that's pretty much it. That was a completely forgettable movie experience. So, that's very hit and miss, that series. The second one I thought was okay.
I think that one was saved by Dennis Hopper because he was like insane in that one too. I think that's the thing. It's like, hey, bring in good actors and get them to just go nuts, and that works even if everything around them is not so great.
The girl
in the second one was extremely annoying.
Oh, absolutely she was, but for me, the only good movie, like truly good movie in that entire series was the very first one. But that's you can say that about a lot of things. Look, I don't know how the hell I'm going to segue Texas Chainsaw series into a romantic comedy. I've been trying, but I've got nothing. So I'm just going to say that another movie that I finally got around to seeing, that my fiance Kylie sat me down and said, "You're going to watch this movie," and I was like, okay, was What Women Want with Mel Gibson, Helen Hunt. Look, I had never seen that film before. It was one of those ones that every time I heard about it or saw a trailer or anything, I thought to myself, it might be all right. but it never really, I was never really that motivated to check it out. But yeah, I tell you what, I loved it. I loved everything up until the ending, which I thought was a bit of a mixed bag. It was kind of like the writer was just sort of like, yeah, you know what? I can't think of a way to end this. I'm just going to bang something out. There you go. That'll do. But look, overall, it was hilariously funny. I thought it was ahead of its time in a way. Like, it's still got such a relevant message to now. Actually, if anything, the movie is probably even more important now than it ever was. And yeah, look, I thought Mel Gibson was absolutely fantastic in the role. And I don't care what anybody says, because I looked on Letterboxd. I was like, surely a lot of people have enjoyed this film. And I looked and it only had like a 2 point something. And I was thinking, okay, that's a bit harsh. And then I looked and, yeah, of course, the reviews are just all these people just, oh my God, Mel Gibson, ew. And it's like, oh my God, people, like, just enjoy the film for what it is, that it's not Mel Gibson on screen. It is his character that he is playing on screen.
Yeah, that's ruined a lot of movies. If you go to a movie on Letterboxd and it has a low rating, and you can sometimes look and go, oh, that person, I bet all the low ratings, or a lot of them, are just because people hate the person that's in it.
Oh, which is so ridiculous. I mean, look, I've never met Mel Gibson, so I can't really say whether he's a bad person or not. Sure, he apparently has done crap things in the news and in the media and all that sort of stuff, but I don't know. Anyway, that's a topic for another podcast. An entire podcast, more than likely. But look, I loved the film. I thought it was a lot of fun, so I was very happy with that one.
I haven't seen that for years and years. I don't remember the ending, but I do know that I quite enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. I thought it was really... I mean, the stand-up for me is still, and I know this is just the 5-year-old child in me, but where he starts, when he first walks out in public and he's hearing all the women, like, what they're saying and everything, but then he looks and there's a French poodle trotting along, looking up at its owner going, Monsieur, I need to poop. Oh my God. Out of everything in that film, of all the poignant messages about misogyny and the patriarchy and all of that sort of stuff, the one thing that I walked away with was a poodle saying, Monsieur, I need to poop. But that's why people come to this podcast. So, yeah. What else you got for me?
Well, I thought the romance might be a good segue into this, but then you finished with that, and now
with poop, yes.
It's kind of opposite now, because I'm going to talk about a black and white film from 1946.
Oh, okay. Well, there's probably not a lot of poop references in that movie, so
no.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
I watched Dragon Wick recently, which has been on my shelf for a little while. It was a blind buy from Indicator, I think. It has Gene Tierney and Vincent Price in it, and it's just like, it's set in late 1800s sometime, and so there's a young girl who lives with her family on a farm, and they're not really cousins, but some distant relation was married to a distant relation something, and so he invites one of their daughters to come and stay at Dragonwick, which is the name of the house. And so Jean Tierney's the girl, so she goes along and she's all excited about, going to the town and seeing Dragonwick and all of this, and she falls for the guy who is not her cousin, which I'm glad they mentioned, because it's always a bit weird in old films where cousins are romancing each other.
Especially when they need to poop. Never mind. Please continue.
But this film was great. It's so beautiful. And have you seen Jean Tierney? Google her. She is stunning.
No, I don't believe I have.
Adding her to one of my favorite classic actresses, because she just, every time she's on screen, just, the rest of the movie could have just been like looking at the wallpaper or something, and if she was standing next to it, it would have been fine. And but it's kind of has a bit of a Rebecca vibe, sort of, but it's because he's married, but then everything's a bit weird. She's there to be like a companion to the daughter, and just, yeah, I don't really want to spoil too much. It does give it away in the synopsis that the wife dies.
Yeah, go for it.
So then he's like,
spoiler.
oh, we can be together now, but, you know, he's not quite what he seems. And so it's just quite a sort of gothic story, and it was very intriguing, and I was quite captivated by it.
Well, that sounds rather interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of actresses that light up the screen and make you swoon in their presence, I wound up doing an Amber Heard 1, 2, 3 punch recently. Yeah,
she who is dead in the eyes. I know you don't care about that because you're not watching her for her acting.
Look, I've got to admit, I've come to the conclusion. Now, let me just go back a little bit here. Like, I am very aware that from everything I've heard, she is an incredibly awful human being. I get that. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to go into details, but, miss you, I need to poop. But that doesn't change the fact that someone can be objectively good looking.
Oh no, I'm just talking about her acting.
Oh yeah. No, look, yeah. I mean, there was a recent study where apparently she was like, scientists determined that because of her face structure and everything, she was, supposedly scientifically the perfect specimen of a female human being. Look it up, Google it. I'm not making this up. That actually happened.
That means nothing. It's like people saying this is the fashion you should wear.
Oh,
Everyone
look, I
has
get that.
Taste.
But I've got to admit, I've come to the conclusion that she is better looking in my mind than when I actually watch her on screen, and I think I might have herded myself out.
Maybe because in your mind she's not acting.
Look, who knows?
Give her life in her eyes.
So I started off with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which now, look, yeah, I am a diehard DC fan. I have liked or loved almost every DCEU film except for Wonder Woman 84, which was came out of a French poodle. And I loved the first Aquaman big time, and so, but I don't know, there was something about this film that was kind of putting me off wanting to rush out to see it and stuff. So I watched it at home, and yeah, it was marginally better than Wonder Woman 84. Ooh. But it's the kind of movie that I've seen it all before. There was just nothing interesting to me really happened in it. The tone was extremely unbalanced. It was either too goofy or too serious, and it was a lot of times the things on screen was just this mishmash of visual effects that were just like, hang on a second, like my brain can't keep up with what's going on here. So I was disappointed with that film, and glad I didn't go out to see it. I still haven't
seen that one yet because of everything I've heard. I figured it wasn't worth the cinema price.
No, I'm really glad I didn't pay money to go see it. But it made up for it when I watched a film from 2011 called Drive Angry with Nicolas Cage and the illustrious Amber Heard. That was a film that I saw a comment on a Facebook group about. Someone saw it and said they thought it was a crazy wild time, and then I saw a comment in the comments saying that apparently the 3D was dazzling or spectacular or one of those kind of adjectives. And I looked it up, and this movie was filmed in 3D, and so they made a really big deal of it because, of course, back then that was when 3D was still like a huge thing. It was like 2 years after Avatar had come out, and they were still riding pretty high on that wave. So I blind bought the Blu-ray because I found it on eBay for $10. And that movie, it was a really wild time. It was the closest thing I've seen to a Robert Rodriguez film that he had nothing to do with. You know, it was those crazy batshit insane green screen special effects and stuff, insane characters. William Fichtner was in this movie as the devil's right-hand man, because Nicolas Cage's character has escaped from hell in a muscle car, stolen this gun that is like, you know, some kind of thing that obliterates demons or whatever and sends them to limbo. And he's on the hunt for his his daughter's child was kidnapped by this cult that want to sacrifice the kid, you know, for her blood on the full moon and all. Like, I'm just reading all this stuff. I'm like, oh man, this sounds great. And yeah, it delivered. I thought it was just such a grindhouse style popcorn film. And even Amber Heard, I thought, was actually really good in the film, you know, but mainly because of her character. She was a real sort of kick-ass female who didn't take shit from anyone and actually really served a purpose in the story. So, that film was great. But then that same night, I thought, I think I need more Amber Heard. And so I watched a movie called All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. Have you seen that one?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Heard of it, get it? Look, the first 10 minutes of that film, I'm like, oh my god, this has so much potential to be great. I thought it was going to be about this girl, this high school girl, who just all the guys mysteriously, for no reason, just fawn over her and worship her. And there's a scene at the start where she goes to this party and, you know, a guy winds up trying to impress her by jumping from a roof into a pool, but smashes his head and kills himself. And I'm just like, if the movie is like this, you know, if it's all about the male gaze and the perils of, you know, stupidly falling for women just based on their looks or whatever, I'm like, this is going to be great. Then it just does this about turn and becomes a shitty slasher film where she goes out with a bunch of other kids to a lodge in the desert and they're just being picked off one by a mysterious assailant, and it was boring as hell. I don't know why it suddenly had this switch around, but yeah, so if anyone ever watched it, just watch the first 10 minutes and then like hit stop, and imagine what the movie could have been, because that was one of the worst films I've seen in a long time. I was so bored in that one.
Oh, that's no good.
You know, that's Amber Heard for you. That bitch.
Well, I have a quick one before I get to my two favorites of the recent times. Because it's a heat wave, I decided on the weekend to watch The Ice Road because
yes.
I like Liam Neeson and I like a fun action film, and that I've been wanting to see it since it came out. I nearly went to the cinema when it came out, but I didn't in the end. And I have a thing for movies that are like natural, like weather things like tornadoes and stuff. I also like harsh elements as well. So, you know, a movie where they've got to drive trucks across an ice road and deal with the perils of that is really interesting, which is the first part of the movie. Later they introduce a villain and, a really over-the-top villain, and some really over-the-top things happen and it gets a bit ridiculous. But it's an action movie. You expect that. And
with Liam Neeson.
Yeah, and it's still... still was a really good time. I was really surprised because it has quite a lot of low ratings. And I don't know if that's a thing of... I know some people rate movies based on supposed quality, no matter what they think about it. Whereas I rate movies on a good time. So I had a good time watching this, so it gets a higher rating. So I don't know if that's why it's so low, or people just... I don't know, they're snobs and they can't just enjoy an over-the-top ridiculous action movie.
I think people are getting a little Neesoned out because he does tend to be churning out these, you know...
Oh, you don't have to watch
sort of
them
vanilla
all.
action movies where he just plays the same character in every single film.
Maybe I'm doing it right then, because I just watch one every now and then, so there's still a lot that I haven't seen. But
Yeah,
yeah,
look,
it
I've
was
missed
great.
out
And
on
Amber
most of
Midthunder
them.
was in it as well, which I didn't realize till her name popped
Right.
up on the opening credits. So she was one of the truck drivers. So that was really
Okay,
fun
cool.
because it's only, I think, the second film I've seen from her.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, yeah, no, I'll definitely have to check that one out. I've been, yeah, curious about that one because I'm the same. I love all those sort of films as well, but they can seriously go one way or the other. You know, I mean, yeah, for
I think it
yeah,
depends. Like someone told me, oh, well, it's better than Cold Pursuit. And so I had to
right.
look up what that was and I read some very convoluted like synopsis, but it just sounded really boring.
Mm,
Whereas this one has the whole ice thing,
yeah.
which is what drew me to it.
Mm,
It's not just action movie with Liam Neeson. It was more about
mm,
they're on the ice road driving trucks and have to get through to this
mm,
place in time to save
mm-hmm.
miners that are trapped in the mine. So
What, under 18s? Minors trapped in under 18s. Yeah. So, speaking of movies based on roads, oh man, this is going to be a thing now. I think every episode we're going to try and segue. The last movie that I wanted to talk about, that I just saw a few nights ago, which is a movie that is one of those films ever since 1997, when I tell people that I have not seen this film, I get either strange looks or chastised or yelled at or, unfriended, whatever. But I finally got around to seeing David Lynch's Lost Highway, which did not
yay!
have ice on it, or Liam Neeson for that matter. But yeah, now that was an interesting film. I loved it. It was one of those ones I had to go away and think about it though, because I was like, I think I loved it for all various reasons, but then there were things that, because yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm the sort of person that likes to have the blanks filled in. I like all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle to be intact at the end of it, and that one gave you, yeah, like most of the puzzle, but there were a lot of sections that were just left with no pieces to fill them. And I had to wrestle with that in my brain. But look, here's the thing. If any other filmmaker had made that film, I don't think it would have worked. David Lynch is the only person who could have made that film the way it was and gotten away with it. I mean, when you have a character that just suddenly becomes a completely different character for no reason, where the other characters are like, oh, hang on, that's not the character that was there before. This is somebody else. Like, what the absolute hell? And so there were things like that that did perplex me. But, I read a few analyses and reviews and things afterwards, and it fascinated me the fact that nearly every single one had a different interpretation of the film. And I think that's the magic of David Lynch's stuff, is that there is no right or wrong. Whatever you think happened, okay, that is what happened. And he kind of, dabbles in this sort of fantasy stuff and a lot. And yeah, look, I really dug it. That is a movie that is definitely going to stay in my brain forever. And I will have to buy the Blu-ray at some point because, yeah, I definitely really love that one. I know you're a big fan of that one.
Yes, that's my favourite Lynch. So I'm glad that you liked it more than Eraserhead.
Yeah, oh yeah. Look, Eraserhead's a movie I'll have to. I mean, I watched that when I was like in my teens or something, and I didn't know what an art house film was. I was more
Well,
into
that's
movies
probably
with
more
poodles that need
experimental
to
than
poop.
art house.
Yeah, that's true. So that is a film I will have to watch again at some point with a more, I was going to say a more mature set of eyes, but I think I'm still 15 in my brain. But anyway, with an older set of eyes, let's just put it that way. Yeah, but yeah, those were the highlights for me for the last couple of weeks.
Well, I have a couple more. I have to update you on the Brad Dourif film Chain Dance, which I told you about last time.
Yes, the one where the prisoners are, what is it, chained to a wheelchair? No, what was it?
Yeah,
again?
that's it.
Yeah, okay.
So it sounded insane, and I wasn't sure what to expect from the movie. But what's interesting is Michael Ironside actually had a lot to do with the film. He co-wrote the screenplay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he was really cool in this. His character it was really interesting. He had long hair, and like the opening scene, he pulls up to the place. There's a girl there who is amazing. She's one of my favorite character types, where she's just really happy and upbeat and everything. And then he's like, "Where's this person?" And she's like, "She's inside, but don't go up because the cops are there." And then he basically ends up setting a cop car on fire, and that's why he ends up in prison.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so basically the prison is underfunded or understaffed or something, so they get this thing that they're going to go send prisoners. I think they take like 5 of them to go to this home where they have people with cerebral palsy, and they're going to chain them to the wheelchairs, and they're going to be their carers. Which is... It sounds insane, but actually the movie turned out to be really good and quite sweet in the end, because Michael Ironside gets paired up with Brad Dourif, and they, like, he's a dick in this, and so they hate each other, and there's a lot of stuff that they're doing to each other and all of that. But eventually they start kind of getting to know each other. But one of the other prisoners who came, and it is just like the asshole prisoner who like tips the guy out of the wheelchair onto the floor and then just like lays on his bed to just relax and just do nothing. And he's the sort of over the top thing of the movie, but Michael Ironside gets on his bad side because he's trying to stop him doing awful things to another guy in the prison. And so then it becomes the thing of that, and then the prisoner gets sent somewhere else, but he escapes, and he's coming to like come after Michael Ironside and attack him. And so there's kind of a big showdown thing at the end of them catching up, and the end sort of third act part with what is going on with Brad Dourif and Ironside and the girls and stuff was just so good, so nice, and it had such a cool ending, because you're worrying for people's lives with this stuff going down, because this awful over-the-top prisoner is coming to try and kill everybody. Okay. So, I know you've said you're a Michael Ironside fan, so I'm definitely
very much so,
need to watch it.
All right, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard it here first. Chain Dance, in case you were wondering, is definitely worth checking out.
And then I have one more film. My favourite of the last couple of weeks. I watched Desperately Seeking Susan, which got on my radar because I saw a fancy Blu-ray, and then I was like, I remember seeing that years ago, but I don't remember exactly what I thought of it. I should watch it again, and I don't know if I ever watched the whole thing because I only really remembered stuff from the beginning. But this has Rosanna Arquette's like a bored housewife, and she's fascinated by personal ads in the paper from a guy called Jim who's desperately seeking Susan, and they meet up when she's in town. So she goes to their meetup place to see who they are, and then she ends up, like Madonna is Susan, and so she ends up stalking her, following her around the city, and ends up with her jacket because she swapped it in a shop for a pair of boots. And then finds a key in the jacket and is like, oh, that's the key to her locker. So she puts an ad in the paper to meet up with Susan. And the Jim sees the ad from a stranger, so he calls his friend, who's Aidan Quinn, and says, can you go check and make sure Susan's okay? And what happens is, I should point out, there's also a bad guy after Susan because she stole stuff from another guy. So the bad guy comes. He thinks that Rosanna Arquette is Susan because she's got the jacket on. So he attacks her. She hits her head, loses her memory. Aidan Quinn comes along, thinks that she's Susan. So he starts talking to her. She can't remember that she's not Susan. And so the film then follows them trying to figure out what's going on and falling in love. Which I completely understand, because Aidan Quinn I don't think has ever looked hotter than in this film. And then Madonna's also after them because she didn't meet up in the place because of all that stuff that happened, and so she wants her stuff back, so she needs the key to the locker and everything. So, yeah, and then the bad guy's still after everyone. So it just kind of, there's a bit of back and forth and following them around, but it's just such a light, breezy, fun film. And
yeah, no, it actually sounds really good. I to be honest, I've never known what the film was about. I'm aware of when it came out, and I actually just sort of thought at the time, because, you know, of course, Madonna was, like, you know, at the peak of her popularity then. And, well, that's arguably, of course. But yeah, I just kind of thought, it just seemed like a Madonna vehicle, you know. Just
I actually feel like Madonna is kind of in the backseat in this.
Yeah, right, okay.
I mean, she looks cool because, you know, the fashions of that time and everything. But I feel like it's more about Rosanna Arquette and Aidan Quinn and following them, and Madonna's just there because she's trying to get her stuff back. And they do spend time on her away from it all, but I just, to me, she didn't really stand out as much as the other two.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because... yeah, no, I should probably check it out. I do like a good, you know, mistaken identity story. So
yeah, it's really good, really funny, good comedy. Because then you've also got her husband who has reported her missing and is trying to find her. But he's like total asshole, so you don't want him to find her because you want her to be with Aidan Quinn.
Oh, all right. Well, say, do you know if that movie was ever nominated for any Oscar awards? I don't believe it was. But speaking of Oscar awards, did you like that segue? Was that good enough for you?
Could have given Aidan Quinn one just for being like the most beautiful man in cinema of that year. I don't know if he was. I don't know all the movies that came out that year, but
all right, that's a challenge.
He would
for the
be
next
nominated
episode.
at least.
We're going to have to find out who the most beautiful man in cinema was for that year. What year was it? 86,
85?
I think?
85.
85? Okay, so if anyone wants to get onto our socials, you can find us on Twitter at Dan_and_Frankie. You can email us at danandfrankiepodcast@gmail.com, or look, I don't know, we're on Facebook and crap like that. Just Google us. Yeah, come along and let us know who you think the most beautiful man of cinema 1985 was. But yes, of course, over the last since the last episode, we've had the nominations for the 2024 Academy Awards came out, and they have caused quite a stir on social media. Which, really, what, Oscar nominations causing controversy? No way. Yeah, of course, the big one for this year was, of course, the fact that neither Margot Robbie or Greta Gerwig were nominated for Best Actress or Best Director for Barbie, and yet the film was, of course, nominated for Best Picture, and the big controversy was that Ryan Gosling was nominated for Actor in a Supporting Role. So, which, I mean, that alone, like, wasn't he the, like, actor in a lead role in that film? I don't really know how the terminology works, but or does that mean that, like, it has to be the central character for actor in a lead role? Because I
guess when you compare him to the best actors, like, they are
I'm looking at that
characters.
now. Yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. Supporting role. Yeah, and look, I mean, of course, there's a ton of memes out there saying that, you know, this happened. If only someone would make a movie about how the patriarchy is dominating, you know, strong females. Oh, wait a minute. So yeah, look, I know there's a lot of politics and red tape and all of that sort of stuff, and money, of course, with Oscar nominations and whatnot. I personally feel like the magic has gone out of the Oscars. Like, I remember back in the 90s, it all felt, you know, like such a wonderful time of year, and I get really excited and go to events and all that sort of stuff, whereas now, yeah, it just seems all political and stuff. But what are your thoughts on this whole fiasco?
Well, I'd be curious, but I don't care enough to research. If back in the day, was it always just a handful of movies that were kind of in every award, because I feel like the Oscars are pretty boring, and other awards things too. It's like the same handful of movies. There'll be a couple of other ones here and there, but it's generally the same movies all the time, and it just seems really uninteresting to me that it's all the same.
Oh no, it was like that back then, but I think also now, because of social media, like again, I'm thinking back to the 90s where we didn't have the internet, and so you didn't hear about everybody else's opinions and all of these things, like memes and stuff. Like back then, it was just you'd find a newspaper or a magazine or whatever, and you'd read the nominations, and you'd be like, okay, cool, yeah, there's a lot of my favorite movies in there, and not only that, but back then they did tend to concentrate more on your kind of blockbuster genre films and stuff, whereas nowadays a lot of the films are more topical, the films with messages and stuff like that. Like, it has changed dramatically over the last 30 years, but I think social media is one of the things that is really killing the magic, because now it's just a big freaking bitch fest on Twitter or wherever, and people have got all these opinions and spouting them as though those are the only ones that matter and everything, and it's just like, just take me back to a simpler time. So
it's actually really annoying, because Cillian Murphy's one of my favorite actors, so of course I'd be happy if he won, but at the same time I just don't care because it's just so annoying. And there's the whole hate train for Bradley Cooper now that started up, so there's just anything he says gets reported negatively and is this big deal, and I'm just like, ugh, I don't care, I'm just gonna keep watching my random movies. It's kind of like horror too, how the awards just shun horror, and the big one example is Toni Collette in Hereditary. That was such an amazing performance, but didn't get nominated because it's a horror film.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I mean, another reason I guess why I'm not that excited is because out of all of the Best Picture nominees, I have seen 4 of the films, and that is not necessarily my fault. There's things like Poor Things, which doesn't even look like we're getting a theatrical release here now.
There is at Palace.
Well, very limited. Yeah, very, very limited. None of the mainstream theaters have got it. There's a couple of films that I don't think have even come out here yet.
I think Zone of Interest is still coming.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really love to see that. It looks fascinating, but
I'm not sure about American Fiction.
I don't know too much about that film, but so I don't know. I can't get excited about the Oscars this year. I don't even know if I'd watch it, to be honest. I'll read the winners and be like, oh, look, Oppenheimer won everything. Yay, cinema. I mean, because
I'm just curious that I don't remember the movie. I remember the score, but as far as sound goes with Oppenheimer, it's up for best sound, and all I think of was when we were sitting in the cinema and the movie started, and someone starts talking. I don't even remember who now, if it's him or what. And I had to concentrate so hard to hear what was being said because it was drowned out by the music. And so whenever I see that it's nominated for Best Sound, I just remember that and think, what constitutes Best Sound?
Oh, look, I was right there with you on that. I'm sitting there, I'm just thinking to myself, this is just such a dreadful sound mix. Which is becoming kind of a staple of Christopher Nolan's films now, because I know a lot of people complained about that with Tenet as well, and I did agree with that. I don't know. I just don't really have a lot to say about the Oscars this year, but other than thanks social media, you've killed it. Good job. Yeah.
Well, on that note.
But yeah, look, I mean, as far the only category that I'm really excited because it's got movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning and Godzilla and stuff is the visual effects category. But speaking of visual effects, how about we talk about the film that won the Best Visual Effects Oscar in 1980? Alright, so we are kicking off our three movie discussion this week or this fortnight with the movie Alien, which came out in 1979. It was directed by Ridley Scott, and it simply tells the story of a ragtag group of people on a spaceship out in the middle of God knows where out in the universe who stumble upon a distress call on a planet. They go down and John Hurt gets pregnant and gives birth to something that menaces and terrorizes the ship, and is essentially a horror film in space. I think maybe it might have been the first of that kind of film, but either way, of course, it's one of the most successful films ever made. It spawned a massive franchise, a massively successful franchise, a sequel that a lot of people consider to be one of the best sequels ever made. And it was one that I, for one, hadn't seen in a very long time. How about you?
I saw it a few years back, but I didn't actually see this until not that long, like within the last 15 years or something. I didn't see it when I was young. Actually, I think the one that's set in the prison, I don't know if
Alien 3?
What number. Yeah, I think that's the first one I saw.
Oh, wow.
And then it was like a number of years later that I actually went back to the beginning and watched all of the films.
Right.
So I think the first and the third and Prometheus I've seen a couple of times and the others once.
Right. Okay. Look, I believe I saw it when I was very young, but it didn't wow me as a kid because it is quite a slow burning film. And yeah, there's a lot of scenes of dialogue and stuff, and so for a kid, of course, I'm kind of like, man, when are they going to pull out lightsabers? But because of course as a kid that was the kind of movie that I wanted to see. Whereas now, oh man, this movie is just phenomenal. There's so much I love about this film. The one thing that really stood out to me watching it the other day was the lighting and cinematography in the film. Everything from the exterior shots of the Nostromo, where it's got these bold contrasts, because the ship's got these big sort of tower-like structures, and one side will be just black, the other side will be brightly lit, and even inside the ship, like, there's just all this really dramatic lighting, like backlit with smoke everywhere and stuff. Like, it is a gorgeous film to look at. And
the thing that stood out for me was the design of everything in the ship, and I guess that's part of the time it was made, that they actually would build stuff and do it all. And I kind of love old technology in films, like the kind of computer screens they have on the ships and everything back in the day before everything was all digital and whatever.
Or the room with...
Of course, the effects as well, like all the practical alien effects and stuff.
The room where they go talk to Mother, where it's just got light bulbs all around. It's like...
Yeah, I'm like,
man, that's
why
so cool.
Interesting design for a spaceship. We're just going to make this room with all these lights that go around for no reason.
I had the same thing, like set design, costumes and everything. Like, it took a diversion from your typical sort of 60s and 70s sci-fi where everything was clean, like everything was very pristine. And I guess in a way it was probably it could have been inspired by Star Wars, because the first Star Wars, A New Hope from 77, was widely celebrated as one of the first films where they made everything look used. It was like a worn out universe, where you look at like the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo's ship, and it was kind of modified, and there was like nothing was pristine. It looked like it was made from a lot of junk. And I think so maybe it sort of took a cue from that, but yeah, everything was very well lived in and not clean, and like even all the uniforms and everything, and the sort of diversity of the outfits, where you had like Harry Dean Stanton's character, Brett was wearing a Hawaiian shirt over a long sleeve t-shirt and everything.
It was awesome.
Oh yeah. Things like that I just thought was so freaking cool. So yeah, it was a gorgeous looking film, and yeah, as you said, the fact that it was practical effects, the fact that the alien was a person in a costume and stuff. I mean, look, admittedly, when the alien does first burst out of John Hurt's chest and runs off, it does look kind of weird. It's just like this thing running across the table. You can just almost see the person under it holding it on a stick or whatever. But I still admire the fact that they did that, and they didn't.
I think you can get away with it looking a bit silly after like what's just happened.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you're still in shock of what just happened. Like I remember the first time watching that, I kind of knew it was coming, of course, because everyone talks about it, but I hadn't seen it before, so it's pretty full on.
Yeah, well, I watched it with Kylie, and she had seen it before but remembered nothing about it, and I didn't find that out until not fairly shortly before the dinner scene. And so when she said that, I was like, oh, so you don't know what's about to happen next? She's like, no. I was like, ooh.
There was like a major thing that I'll have to leave till the sealed section that I had completely forgotten about.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sitting there thinking, something's not right. What's going on? And it didn't even come back to me until it was revealed. And then I was like, oh, that's right.
Is that to do with the character of Ash, played by Ian Holm?
Yes.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're going with this one. But fun fact, in that dinner scene, none of the actors actually realized how visceral it was going to be. And so there's a brief shot of what was it? Was it Lambert? When she just gets blasted in the face with blood and stuff, and that was actually her reaction is actually real. If you watch that, like she had no idea that she was about to get splattered like that. And I think the whole cast didn't realize what it was going to be like. So that's always fun to watch that. But I mean, of course, Ripley is just one of the most iconic sci-fi action movie characters. She's up there with Sarah Connor, I mean, people love her, and you can tell why in this film. I love that, she was disobeying a direct order from the captain not to let those people back in, and, and she was just like maintaining her composure and everything, and so many times, like, she's right about everything. She was such a great character, and just so
And she
smart.
cared about saving the cat.
Yes, well, yeah, I mean, that is obviously,
a sign of a good person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely it is. So, yeah, I did kind of think, and look, I think it's just more because we're conditioned now for, more extreme kind of horror. For me, it's not a very scary film. I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, I know that there are a lot of people who think otherwise. Like, I was reading a lot of Letterboxd reviews, and some people put it up there with the scariest movies ever made, and I'm just like, ooh, really? No. I don't know about that. I mean, it does offer a lot of really good tension. There's no doubt about that. And, I mean, there's just the whole concept and idea and everything is brilliant.
I think that's something I really appreciate in films now, is that they don't go overboard with all the alien stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like some differences in blockbusters. Like, back in the day, you'd have a team of people in a movie and they'd be fine at the end of the film. And now it's like, oh, you can't have everyone survive. You have to kill off some of them because, there's the drama and the, emotional thing. And it's like, well, you could just let them all live and just be happy.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
it's like this, like now, everyone would go so full on with the horror and the aliens. I actually don't remember the rest of the movies enough to know how the balance changes of that, how much alien stuff is in each of the films.
Oh, okay, because
It's been ages since I've seen them.
How well do you remember Aliens, the one that comes after that by
Like,
James
pretty
Cameron?
much not at all. I've only seen it once.
Oh, wow. Okay. It
This
is
actually, I am planning, like, I've been meaning to for a while
You have, yeah.
rewatch the franchise, which is partially why I suggested it.
Oh, man, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
So I am going to watch through them again. And actually, there's that new one coming out. April, maybe? Sometime this year. I think it's maybe first half of the year. And I did just hear today that apparently one of the actors leaked it's set between the first and second film. So,
yeah, cool.
Even though it's a standalone story. So I'm
good.
hopeful that the timing will work out well, that I won't be waiting too long. But yeah, I'll have them all fresh in my head by then.
Yeah, cool. Because, like I said before, Aliens is widely regarded as a film that is just, it vastly surpasses the first one. Now, it's a completely different sort of a film because it's more of an action war film. There's barely any sort of horror subtleness to it. It is a full-on war film. And it lives up to its title. Let me just put it that way. I mean, the first one was called Alien because there's one. The second one, there's a lot of them. But yeah, I'm one of the people who I also agree the second one is hugely better than the first and one of the greatest movies ever made. It really is. You can't deny that. But yeah, but I like that all of the films have a different style and tone and whatnot. It's a good thing, rather than just rehashing the same thing.
With this one too, it's not like, it's a slog to sit through to get to the alien stuff. Like, it's interesting I think it's interesting right from the beginning.
Same, yeah. And
I mean, I did remember it as being slow. That's something that I thought, like, from my memory, even though I didn't remember a lot of the film, just bits and pieces, but not the overall big thing. So I didn't remember how much alien stuff was actually in it. But yeah, I actually found as soon as it got going, I was just like in it and just for the whole runtime. So,
I think a lot of the reason why, even though it is a bit slow moving, I think a lot of the reason why it works is because if you listen to the dialogue in that film and the performances delivering that dialogue, it's amazing. It is so realistic. It is the way that people actually talk to each other. There were so many moments where I actually kind of stopped and thought, wow, this conversation's really realistic. And yeah, the way, like, the chemistry between everybody was phenomenal. And that really added to the tension, especially when people start getting bumped off. You cared about the characters, and that is something that so many horror films nowadays don't do. I mean, I go back to All the Boys Love Mandy Lane. Like, I did not care one shred about a single person on screen. Whereas, this film, you really genuinely cared about everybody. And so I think that just, that really made it what it is and why it's such a successful film to this day. I was really, really happy to watch that one again. I've got to watch it more often, I think, because it is truly an exceptional film.
And got to love all the H.R. Geiger stuff.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
I remember back in the 90s, that was like the big thing. I had a little hardcover notebook that had his art on the front, and just, his stuff's all so cool.
Was that when you were going through your goth phase?
Probably. Must have been.
He is often associated with goths. Like, I did love as well, there were a few moments where, because, there's all these weird sort of hanging pipes and things and stuff, there was one moment in particular where the camera is going along and you actually just blatantly, if you know what to look for, you see the alien like right there in the foreground, just sort of suspended, hanging there with all the pipes. You can see its big shiny head and the camera just goes past, and I'm just like, oh my god, that is so cleverly done. Because, I know there's the bit later on where it's hiding inside a wall crevice, sort of, just trying to have a nap. I mean, come on, let an alien sleep. He's had a busy day. But yeah, there was this one shot where it went along and I was like, oh my God, that is so clever. Like, they just didn't hide the fact that the alien's right there, but because it's got that biomechanical sort of a design, with those pipes coming out of its back and everything, like, it just blended in so well with the ship. So, yeah, no, it was, there's so much about that film that was just pure genius, but, yeah, no, I can't wait for you to revisit Aliens. Yeah, I think I'll be doing the same myself soon, because, yeah, that is a truly outstanding flick. Yeah. So that was the one that we gave ourselves for our mutual film. But now you gave me a film, and we only just found out what it's actually called, or did we? I don't know.
Well, it's one of those different names in different regions type of movies. All similar, but just
Yeah.
language thing.
Exactly. So, shall I read that little Wikipedia bit?
Okay.
So it's okay. So the movie might be called Frostbite. It might be called Frostbitten. It depends where you look. But I personally thought it was Frostbite, but then I looked on Wikipedia and it said the title is an obvious play on Frostbite because the movie takes place in a frozen environment and features vampires who bite people. The original title was Something Wicked This Way Comes, after the famous Shakespearean quote. The producers liked the Swedish title Frostbiten more since it was more international and they could create its English language title by simply removing the final letter. Teasers and trailers on film festivals therefore wore the name Frostbite. However, it was only called Frostbite in the United Kingdom. In the United States, the movie is called Frostbitten, which is a more precise translation of the original title, which I thought was interesting because, yeah, last time you told me, you're going to watch Frostbitten. I'm like, okay, and then I couldn't find it. And then I found a movie called Frostbite, and I'm like, what is going on here? But anyway.
Yeah, because my DVD is the cover they're using on Letterboxd, which is an American DVD, so it's Frostbitten, so that's why I've always known it as that title.
I'm happy to go with Frostbitten, but yeah, so since this was your pick for me, what's it about?
Okay, so this is about a mother and I've watched a lot of mother and daughter
have.
movies recently.
So have I, but they've more stepmother and stepdaughter, and that's on a completely different website. So let's not get into that.
So a mother and daughter moved to this town because the mum's got a job at a hospital, and it's a town that's just going into the time where for 30 days the sun won't be up. And so the daughter becomes friends with someone at school who invites her to a party, and the mother goes to the hospital and meets a doctor there. And at this hospital with this weird doctor, there's like a young hospital
orderly,
student doctor, orderly, tech guy. I don't some hospital related thing they don't actually say. He finds these drugs, these little red capsules, and they end up going to this house party that the teenagers are having, and they're actually turn you into a vampire because the doctor's been doing genetic testing stuff. So basically, the mum is having stuff going on at the hospital with the doctor and a weird patient, and she gets bitten by this weird patient and stuff happens. And then the daughter is trying to survive this party where vampires are.
Yeah.
So it's just I mean, I didn't say this was a favourite movie. I just remembered the little I remembered of it being fun, which is a scene where one of the guys who has taken the drug and is becoming a vampire has to go to his girlfriend's house to meet her family for dinner, and that's the main scene I remembered because it was quite funny. Yeah.
I mean, I'd never heard of it until the last episode where you said you must watch this movie. Look, I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. For me, this was the epitome of a middle ground film. I mean, I gave it 2.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and I think that sums it up. Like,
that's what I gave it to.
Right. like in my notes, I've written the good and the bad. So for me, the good was the setting. I thought, you know, snow-covered Sweden with that whole 30 Days of Night. That'd make a good title for a vampire movie. Oh, wait. I thought that was great. I mean, yeah, it really set a good tone for it. The dinner meeting scene that you talked about, yeah, I thought that was terrific. I like the whole sort of thing of, you know, the transformation into vampires wasn't like anything we've really seen before. It, sort of like went more sort of gradually rather than just sort of turning straight away or whatever. I do love the idea of pills that turn people into vampires. That was cool. That was a really, really, really good idea. And I kind of think that was one of the things for me. If the film had just been about that, it would have been a better film for me, especially at a party setting. You know, I mean, like, yeah, that scene was fantastic. And that was one of the reasons why, you know, for me, yeah, it was a good film. There were things like that just really set the bar. But I also had the visual effects I thought were really, really good as well. A lot of practical stuff. There was one shot in particular that stood out big time where girl and a guy are in a bathroom and he's you know, in the process of changing, and then the lights go out and you just see these red eyes in the darkness, and I thought that looked so cool. You know, there was a lot of great visual effects, but that was the thing. So with the bad, I thought the plot was kind of lackluster, but it is hard to get vampire films right. I mean, you know, for every interview with the vampire, you get, you know, a dozen or so ones that just, are very questionable. I did think the World War II stuff, and that's what I mean. It sort of felt like two different films. You know, that stuff was cool, but I thought
it was the cold open was guys during the war that kind of sets the beginning of the guy who becomes the doctor. Later.
I get that, but I felt they were tonally just two very, very different things. And I just thought, the ending was very abrupt. Like, you know, it sort of ends with that scene in the ambulance, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, what happens next? Oh, credits, okay. Look, I didn't hate it. Because I was thinking to myself, well, what's the point of talking about it? So the point of talking about it is, if you are a vampire movie fan and you have not seen it, I would 100% recommend watching it. It's not a bad entry into the vampire oeuvre, if that is how you pronounce that word. But yeah, that's the only people I would recommend it to, because it wasn't scary, it wasn't that funny, but it was okay. I didn't hate it.
I had a good time. It has some funny stuff and enough to keep it interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't watch it again. You know, I've seen it. I can move on. But anyway, I do thank you for forcing me to watch it. That was, yeah. But speaking of forcing people to watch movies, so I have in my page of notes, I've got Frostbite, like I said, I've got the good, the bad, I've got all these notes. Alien, I've got, you know, lighting with an exclamation mark, I've got, you know, all these other things and everything. Then it comes to Kung Pow, Enter the Fist, where all I've written is best fucking movie ever made, exclamation mark.
Wow.
Yep. So
that is so wrong.
Here we go. Because now, for all of those listening at home, I, up until now, have no idea what Frankie thought of this film. I got a message from her with a picture of Chosen One with his tongue out and tonguey on the end, and it said, "What the fuck, Dan?" And I is that good what the fuck or bad what the fuck? But then I've sort of seen clues that make me sense that this is going to be a really interesting discussion. So, Kung Pow Enter the Fist is a movie that came out in 2002, by writer-director Steve Odekirk. Now, Steve Odekirk has done a really diverse range of films. He wrote the film Patch Adams with Robin Williams, which was critically acclaimed. He's done more, I know it's an oxymoron, but more serious comedies, such as Nothing to Lose with Tim Robbins and Martin Lawrence. He's written a lot of children's films, like the Jimmy Neutron film, and a lot of things. He's done a vast range of things. But this time around, he bought the rights to a 1976, I want to say, film, a Hong Kong martial arts film called Tiger and Crane Fist. And essentially, he digitally inserted himself into the film, like put his face over that of the main actor. He dubbed every single voice in the film on his own, aside from one female character named Woe. But he also filmed a lot of scenes himself. Like, he recreated some of the set pieces and whatnot to make this film. And it's essentially the story of a man who is the chosen one, who is destined to save the world from an evil council of French aliens who have selected Master Payne as their, I don't know what you'd call him, their diplomat on Earth, who changes his name to Betty. And anyway, look, I love this film. I went and saw it in the cinemas in 2002 because by that point I was already an Odekirk fan. And as I said in the last episode, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, but I was crying from laughter. And the other day, watching it again, the first 15 minutes, I had tears rolling down my face because I was laughing so hard. What did you think of it, Frankie?
Wow, I can't believe you were laughing that much, that you were crying.
I was. I love the film.
I do not. This
Really?
is kind of like why I don't like those like old Adam Sandler comedies where it's just too stupid. I just can't get on board with it. I just like roll my eyes. I don't know if you watch it when you're young, but it's more of a thing because you know you can watch stupid stuff when you're a kid, but now there was a couple of funny things, but yeah.
What were the couple? I gotta know.
Well, the face on the tongue was interesting.
Hey, that's Tonguey. He's got a name.
Yeah, okay. The picture that's actually on Letterboxd where he ends up with eyeballs on the ends of his fingers. The stuff with the cow was interesting enough. And the music, the You Can't Touch This and Baby Got Back being played during some of the fight scenes. Oh, and the lady that picks up the baby rolling down the hill.
Oh, yeah.
And then
so
it's just
cute.
like, aren't you cute? And then just sets him off rolling down the next hill. But yeah, it was just
bit too over the top.
Really long.
Oh, wow.
And the girl with her wee whatever that just got more over the movie. She was doing it more and more. It was driving me nuts.
Look, I've always maintained that about this film. I've always said that it's the kind of film you're either going to love it or hate it. There's no middle ground. You know, it is absolutely stupid. I am never going to argue with anyone who walks away from it thinking, nah, didn't work for me, because I get it. I know. I don't know. It's just, for me, it worked. You know, there were so many, from the small things, you know, like the ninja with the smoke bomb, you know, and he like hits it on the ground and it just makes this little and, you know, I was like standing there like, oh, come on. To just, I think for me, Steve Odekirk just, I don't know. I get what you're saying about the Adam Sandler stuff, but I think for me, Steve Odekirk, I'm on his wavelength more than, say, Adam Sandler. So, for, you know, when he's delivering that whole monologue about how, you know, killing is wrong and there should be a and it's bad, and there should be, a stronger word. Killing is badong, and then he's going to stand for the opposite of that, which is gnadab. Yeah, that is ridiculous. That is so stupid. But there's just something about Odenkirk that I just love. I've loved him in everything that I've seen him in. Even from the stupid stuff to more kind of serious stuff. Like, yeah. So I'm one of the people who just, absolutely loved that film. And I know that I'm not the only one. I mean, what's it? It's got a 3.2 average rating on Letterboxd. So
there's a very high bar for 5 stars.
So I know I'm not the only one, and there's been a lot of people who've been campaigning for the teased sequel at the end, which never happened. But I mean, look, for me, it wasn't perfect. I do think the silliness went a little bit too far.
Wasn't perfect.
At times.
I see you gave it 4.5 stars.
I did.
You had it close to.
I know, and like the whole concept of French aliens and everything was. Yeah, it does go a little bit too far at times, but the fact that I've been quoting this movie now for 22 years, I mean, the amount of times I will say to people, you go that way, I'll go home. Or, that's a lot of nuts. And, holy shit, I have been quoting this movie so much. And so, obviously for me, it was a winner. I think, if you're the sort of person who likes silly humor, I implore you to watch this movie. And if you've seen it, you'll get that joke. But anyway.
Yeah, I think I prefer my weird comedy rather than the really too far.
Yeah, because I remember Nobbins said to you that if you liked Hot Rod, you're going to like this movie, which I thought at the time, like, okay, that might be...
Yeah, definitely. This is no way near as good as Hot Rod.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Completely different.
That's fair enough. No, look, like I said, I will never criticize anyone for not liking this film because, it's definitely, I wouldn't say an acquired taste, but like I said, you've got to be on the wavelength of Odenkirk, I think, in order to appreciate it. But
it's very specific. You have to like, because it's a parody, but it's like to the extreme.
Oh,
of stupid stuff.
Yeah, no doubt about that whatsoever. All right, well, so that being said, we have chosen our mutual film for next week, and I'm excited because it's up there with my favorites, and I can't wait to talk about it. What are we going to be talking about next time?
Batman.
Woohoo! Not the Batman, not Batman Begins. We're going way back to 1989 with Tim Burton's Batman, the film that was, oh my god, the definition of a blockbuster. I'm not going to ramble on about it now because, of course, we will be talking about that on the next podcast episode. But I'm very excited because, and I know there's a lot of people who love that film as well. So it's going to be a fun one. But that being said, shall we do our usual thing of 3 movies to choose from? So. For anyone who has, if this is the first time you've joined our podcast, we will give each other, we pick 3 movies for each other as homework for the next week. We have to choose one, but rather than describing the film, we will give each other a review that is either from Rotten Tomatoes or Letterboxd that will kind of give us a vague idea of what the movie's going to be like. So... whose turn is it? Is it your turn to read to me?
Don't remember.
How about you go first then?
Okay. I'm calling this my payback edition.
Yeah.
I have picked one film is not a favourite of mine, but it has a performance that I think is worth watching. Mm-hmm. The other 2 are ones I quite like, or one I haven't seen for a while, but I remember quite liking it, that lots of people do not like. Ooh. And so I have found bad reviews for all of them.
Yay! All right, give it to me.
Give it to me, baby. Okay, so film number one. It may be nearly 40 years old, but this movie is still every bit as entertaining and vital as it was the day it was released, which is to say, it's not entertaining or vital at all. A vanity project for two big stars who hadn't figured out what audiences wanted to see them do. This is an egocentric disaster, strictly for those who enjoy the palate-cleansing zing of a truly tasteless bad movie.
Ooh, okay, that's got me intrigued.
Okay, let me find my next one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, film number two. A rather silly concept drawn out to terribly silly lengths with so many horror movie cliches that the good devices are drowned out by the schlock.
Okie dokie.
And... oh, actually, I read you the wrong one.
Oh. Whoopsie days.
Do you want to hear the other one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
You can get one for free.
Film looks like a bad copy of a few movies that are much better. The first half of the film still makes some sense because it is a mystery with elements of horror, but later the quality drops drastically. I'm honestly amazed at how some actors have agreed to star in a film like this. Extremely bad, boring, and barely watchable film.
Oh, wow. Okay, now, see, that sold me more than the other one, so, yeah. Ooh, okay. Two big contenders.
Okay, last film.
Mm-hmm.
I rarely turn a movie off after starting it, as if it's my punishment for picking a horrible movie when it happens, but it came close with this one. The beginning is pure garbage, as if everyone involved was purposefully trying to do a horrible job. Acting, script, cinematography, and directing in general. Garbage horror stereotype characters blurting out horrible dialogue. But then an actor shows up and gives me mixed feelings towards whether or not this is in fact a horrible film. And it's a mystery what they ended up thinking.
Wow. All right. I mean,
I will just say that of the three movies, one doesn't have Rotten Tomatoes critic reviews, and the other two are 20% or less.
all right. Well, I do love the sound of all three because I'm kind of a masochist when it comes to that sort of stuff. But I'm leaning towards the very first one. I don't know. Vanity projects just appeal to me. So yeah, I'm going to go with whatever that one was. And by your reaction right now,
I love this film so much.
And what is it? What am I watching?
You will be watching from 1984, Rhinestone with Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone.
Okay, all right.
This is where she's a country singer, of course, and she brags she can turn anybody into a country singing star. And Stallone is the taxi driver that she takes on for this project.
I know about the film, but it is one that I have not seen. So
I got it as part of my...
God.
I found the DVD on eBay when I started my Stallone project and thought, I'm going to watch this because Dolly Parton. And it's so... I think it's got 2.4 on Letterboxd.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, it's quite a range.
I mean, so obviously it's no Kung Pow, but you know, it's not bad. That's what you're trying to tell me, right?
I think it's a great time. You get to see Sylvester Stallone sing.
Right. Okay. No, that's cool. It is not a movie that I ever thought I would ever watch, but now I have to. So there you go. All right. Well, for you, I have chosen the large tub. No, I have chosen three. My reviews are a lot shorter than yours. I didn't realize we would do such long ones. But so anyway, the first one. It's geek pride all the way. It's funny, it's exciting, and it has jokes about spaceman junk. Who could ask for anything more? So you got that one. Then the second one, this was given to me as a Christmas present this year, and that friend is now my favorite person I know. Every minute of this movie screams, this is our first movie and we barely know what we're doing, but it works. And then lastly, I've got the visuals were crack cocaine for the eyes, visually stimulating and dangerously alluring. A groundbreaking comic book adaptation that absolutely blew my mind with its bold, eye-catching style and presentation. So you've got geek pride, funny spaceman junk. You've got barely know what we're doing, but it's a great film.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the last one because of the talk about visuals.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. If you are after visuals, then look no further than Robert Rodriguez's Sin City.
That is on my shelf and it has been for years.
Yeah, I know that that's a film that you haven't seen, and honestly, man, you just don't know what you're missing. And I'm glad you picked that one, actually, because it is phenomenal. I mean, pretty much, I think it's like 98% of the film is shot against green screen. You know, it's all, yeah. But if you I would definitely recommend, after you've seen the film, go and have a look at some of the, you know, panels from the comic book online, because it is literally the comic book come to life. It's incredible. But yeah, it's got an amazing cast. It's just, oh God, it's such an amazing film. So yes, I am doing you a favor. See, look, I've subjected you to some of the worst films you've seen in a long time. Now I'm redeeming myself. Oh my God, and you're making me watch Rhinestone. Well, there you go.
Hey, I gave Rhinestone 4 stars.
Yikes. Okay, well, let's see how we go with that. But anyway.
It's just a fun comedy.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So, wow. So, next podcast, stay tuned for our chat about Batman 1989, Rhinestone, and Sin City. Two comic book noir, dark, deep action films, and Rhinestone.
One of my other films was based on a book. That probably would have been a better fit, but...
Oh, okay.
Oh, well.
Oh, well, that's all right. All right, so before we go, I think it's time to get a little saucy as we jump into the sealed section. So for anyone who wants to hear about spoilers for the movies that we've been discussing, stick around. If you don't want to hear about any spoilers, not that we got too many this time around, but thank you very much for swinging on by, and we will, of course, catch you on the next episode on Friday the 16th of February, where we'll be talking about Batman and Sin City and Rhinestone. So till next time, stay safe, and for all of those who want to hear some spoilers, let's go! Alright, what do you got? Talk to me. Spoil me.
I only really have one thing, I think, which is an alien with Ash. Because, you know, he seems dodgy from the start. He just doesn't really react to things, and Ripley doesn't trust him.
Almost robotic.
Yeah, and I was just like, what's going on with him? And I just could not remember, like, what his deal was. Mm-hmm. But you obviously know there's something. And, so then when it happened... And it was revealed that he's like a robot. That shocked me again, because I'd forgotten that was a thing.
Right. No, that's a bigger plot point than you know, because it goes further into Aliens as well. There's sort of a thing where Ripley has this, you know, absolute utter disdain against robots and stuff, but. And I thought it was really fascinating the way that they designed him, full of milk and balls. Like, it was a really, really strange design, wasn't it? No, it was really fascinating the way that that they did it as well. You know, the fact that, you know, Ian Holm was just like absolutely going berserk, and like you sort of like, what is he doing? Like, it's really weird. And then, I mean, you know, if you don't know, of course, and then, when it's revealed. And again, the visual effects and everything were quite stunning in that bit. You know, the way that they had, like, the sort of animatronic Ian head and all that sort of stuff was, very well done. But I also, actually, I want to address the final confrontation where everybody is dead except for Ripley and Jonesy. There's a lot of talk about how it was like a really misogynistic move that they would reduce her to her underwear, to give the guys a perv or whatever. But the way I looked at that was that she was more vulnerable. I mean, it made sense because she was going into the cryo sleep chamber. And so naturally you would wear that. But yeah, I just think it added a layer of vulnerability to her character that, the alien is suddenly there in the room with her, which is terrifying. And I love that it didn't look like it was actually going to attack. It was just sleeping in that nook, and it was like, what's it going to do? But of course, she's got to get rid of it. But
was it sleeping? I thought it was sort of stuck there somehow, and it only managed to get free when it had to.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. No. Look, that's a possibility. I interpreted that it was exhausted and having a little nana nap and stuff. But yeah. No. I thought that whole ending, especially the first time you watch it, if you don't know what's coming, I mean, you can kind of guess that it's going to be on the shuttle, but yeah, it was really well done. But no, I thought reducing her to her singlet and undies, I thought that was a really bold move, and it worked really well for like I said, this the vulnerability of the character. So yeah, I had no problem with that.
And yay for old movies, there was no little thing at the end like, oh look, there's a little egg hidden on the ship that she hasn't seen yet.
yeah, exactly. No, the way it goes into the second one and everything is, you're not going to be disappointed. There's no bullshit like that.
And then the third one has Brad Dourif.
Was that the third or fourth?
Isn't it the third?
Do
they have different titles?
I thought it was the fourth one, Alien Resurrection.
Called? Oh yeah, maybe it's Alien that one. What's Alien? Is Alien 3 just called Alien 3?
It's just called Alien 3.
Oh, okay. I thought that was.
And I dug that film a lot. I thought the tone and everything was really good. Alien Resurrection is one of these films that no matter how many times I watch it, I think I've seen it maybe 3 times, I can't remember a single thing about it. It is a weird film. It was written by Joss Whedon, but it doesn't feel like anything Joss Whedon was ever involved with. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that film, really, but we'll get there. But But I don't really... Kung Pow not the sort of movie you can really spoil. And Frostbite, Frostbiten.
I guess we can talk about the end of that in more detail.
Oh, okay,
it was so weird at the end that the cops just put her in an ambulance, and then they're just there at the house to face off with these teenagers, and that's it. I mean, I guess you can assume they were just overtaken because there was how many teenagers that are now vampires?
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't seem like the sort of movie that warrants an ambiguous ending. You know what I mean? It's more of a mainstream kind of film that should be... It felt like to me that it should be wrapped up.
Maybe they just thought it was too hard, so they're like, we'll just leave it here, and just because the story for the character too was that she was going off with her mum and this little girl to start a new life somewhere.
Yeah, I know. But for me that ending was a big disappointment. It kind of let it down, but not much we can do about that. But but like I said, there was enough cool things about it that I liked. So
hopefully you can say at least the same about Rhinestone.
Yes, or it could be, my Kung Pow. We'll see.
It is the payback edition, so
exactly. No, and
you never know.
I definitely
but hey, you
it.
Might be surprised. Like I wasn't sure what to expect. I just thought I like Dolly Parton, I like Sylvester Stallone. We'll see what happens with them together. And I think there's one misstep which I'll talk about, but otherwise I thought it was pretty great.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, that's it for spoilers. So, So to everybody who has joined us in the sealed section, thank you very much for sticking around. And As I said before, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time where we talk about Batman and Sin City and Rhinestone. And it's going to be great. So, yes. Anything you want to say to the good folks out there before we go?
No, just enjoy some movie watching over the next 2 weeks.
Exactly, yes. And thank you to everybody, who has been letting us know that they've been watching the movies that we've been talking about and recommending, because that's basically why we're doing this. So, yes, thank you, everybody. Until next time, stay safe, watch lots of movies, and we will catch you on the proverbial flip-flop.